we are not as ready yet as we should be. In the 98 days that remain to us, we must turbocharge our preparations to make sure that there is as little disruption as possible to our national life. And I believe that that is possible with the kind of national effort that the British people have made before and will make again. And in these circumstances, we would, of course, have available the £39 billion in the withdrawal agreement to help deal with any consequences.
Turbocharged preparations for a no-deal Brexit, says Boris Johnson, new Prime Minister, as he addresses Parliament for the first time. He spoke in detail also about his plans, obviously, ideally to stay, but if not, of course, then no-deal Brexit, do or die, as we've said it before. That is the aim. He says it's the first day of a new approach. Nile Gardiner joins me now. His detail, I mean, he didn't have much heat on that, but in terms of outlining that he's getting the ball rolling, this turbocharged element of it, it goes to show to Europe, if you don't give us what you want, this is almost like a threat. If you don't give us what we want in this new deal, then we're getting ready.
Yes, that's correct. And so today's message was not only for the British people, but it's also a message to the whole of Europe as well, that Britain means business on Brexit. This is not bluster, this is not bluffing.
You don't think it's bluffing?
No, I don't think so at all.
An element of bluffing here?
I don't think so, actually. I think that Boris is perfectly happy to take Britain out without a deal, if necessary, on October 31st. And I think most of the cabinet think the same way, actually. And most of the Conservative Party supporters actually support a no-deal scenario. And so I don't think there are any fears on the part of Boris Johnson about leaving without a deal at all. So it's not bluff. This is a clear message to the EU. Unless you negotiate with us on our terms, we are going to leave without a deal. Now, I think in Germany, for example, where they export 15% of their cars to the UK, they're going to be listening to this very, very carefully. And I think there will be growing calls within Europe, actually, from the more pragmatic elements, to negotiate some kind of concession on the EU side towards...
you know it's not one
Britain.
Country here. It's, you doesn't have to listen to one country. It has to listen to all the 25 countries.
It's a very good point. So the Germans, for example, will be more pragmatic on this. The French will oppose any kind of concession whatsoever. My sense is that we're not going to see some kind of new negotiated deal with the EU, and that Britain will leave under a no deal on October 31st. I think that is highly likely because the European Union is not willing to budge here. And the EU has treated the negotiations, certainly with Theresa May, as a kind of punishment beating for Britain, leaving Brexit as a warning to the rest of Europe. That there are consequences if you dare try and leave the EU. Well, this British government isn't going to be making any concessions on the British side. They want the concessions to come from the EU, not from the UK side.
Can Labour, can the Lib Dems change anything? If we're going towards a no deal, and clearly that the House doesn't want a no deal Brexit, can they do anything to stop that?
Well, it has to be said, I think right now that, the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrats and so on, they are almost irrelevant on the Brexit front. All of the policy is going to be driven by the British government. Parliament cannot stop a no-deal Brexit. That is the legal default position. Parliament can vote on this all they like. They
can have a vote of no confidence.
Well, I don't think there's a majority in Parliament for a vote of no confidence in the Conservative Prime Minister. They're not going to get that. Boris is in the driving seat here. And I have to say, this is a sort of, in a way, a kind of rallying cry. It was a declaration of war here, saying that Britain is going to fight for its sovereignty and its freedom. And the Europeans can work together with Britain, or they need to get out of the way. But Britain is heading on this train outside of the EU. It's a one-way train here.
We are ready to talk. We are ready to negotiate. This is what we want. If you don't give it to us, this is what we're doing, and these are the preparations we are taking. Nile Gardiner, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Of course, the story we'll keep on top of.